everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to wait a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes for more attendees to join, and then we'll introduce the webinar and our facilitator for the day. We're super excited to have him. Can't be more elated. So we'll start at 1:05. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Right. Well, I think we have a good number to start with. Hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Fiona Kituja. I'll be your background host for the day, but the star of today's show will be Edward Amartey, who is a MEST alumnus and senior product manager at Amazon. We're super excited to have him today to walk us through the establishing of a strong measurement culture and effective performance metrics for our startups and SMEs. A few key housekeeping to make sure that we're all on the same page. And there is a dialog box at the bottom of your screen that shows Q&A. So please feel free at any point of the webinar to send in your questions over there and we'll answer your questions live. There is also an option to raise your hand. And if you need to contribute live, we'll be happy to unmute your mic and have you contribute. So without further ado, Edward, take it away.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Hi, everyone. My name is Edward, and I am a former MEST EIT and founder of the MEST Incubator Program. I was in MEST in 2018. I graduated in 2010. I will share a bit more about myself. But today we are going to talk about how, as founders, product managers, or as owners of businesses, how can you measure your business? How can you measure the health of your product to determine whether or not it is doing what it's supposed to do? So I'll give you a few tips. This class could actually take about 5 hours, but I'm going to stay high level, and hopefully one day we can go in detail. I'll be more than happy to do that again. A few items from my side. Although I do work for Amazon, I do not represent the company today. Everything I'm going to share, it is in my personal capacity. And so you can ask me questions about, hey, what is it like to work at a company and stuff like that, but I cannot talk much about my job, or I don't represent my company today. Today, it is Edward, full stop. So a bit about myself. Who am I? I went to the University of Ghana in 2007. I'm actually, for the Ghanaian EITs, you understand, I'm actually one of the medical rejects. So my interest was to go to medical school. That didn't work out. I ended up graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree sometime in 2007. And I worked for a bank between my uni and MEST. But honestly, just like most of you, I realized very quickly that I was not built for a desk job. And so I saw a great MEST ad. And the question was, do you want to start your own company? Honestly, that was the thing that drew me into MEST. It was a little bit more risky then because there was no template for MEST. There was no history. There weren't any graduates, and the program was still being shaped. So it was like a big gamble. Like, you are leaving a bank job to go do MEST. Like, yo, are you okay? But I took the big leap, and honestly, it is one of the best decisions of my life. I learned so much. I made the right networks, and I was able to raise VC money to start my own company. And that was what, for me, was what I was looking for. And the company I started was called 90 Mobile. I was one of 3 co-founders. I was with the company till about 2015 when I left for the US, after which I left for the US. But before I left for the US, I actually worked for MEST as a MEST fellow. It was just about 4 months, and so it doesn't really show up in my profile that much. But I was a part of the team that actually took MEST from Ghana to Nigeria to Kenya, South Africa. And I was very proud to have traveled all these regions to recruit some of the MEST EITs that have now gone on to raise money and even sell their companies. Another accomplishment that I'm very proud of. I left Ghana to come do my MBA in Kellogg Northwestern. It's a business school in Chicago. Was there in 2018, and within that time, I interned with Amazon as a product manager. And I think the company, based on my experience with MEST, the company absolutely loved what I did for them. And so they gave me a full-time offer to come back to the company after graduation. So I've been with Amazon as a senior product manager for the past 5 years. And it's been a very rewarding journey. And I've learned a lot. One of the key things that I've learned is how to measure success of your product, company, and that is what I'm going to share with you today. I want this to be as interactive as possible. So although I've made some time in the end for you to ask questions, you don't need to wait till that time. If I say anything and you have a question you want to ask, feel free to come off mute or feel free to ask within the chat. I'll pause and we can engage. I actually like a very engaging interactive session. This is something that we should actually be doing whiteboard, like drawing, but unfortunately distance and logistics will not allow us to do that. So the more engaging this is, the happier I will be. So let me tell you a story time. I like to tell stories, and why not start a story with this particular masterclass? So when I was in MEST, I had graduated, raised money with my co-founders, and we were coding, building the products. By we, I mean my co-founders, because I was not the most technical person. I was helping with databases, but my CEO and my co-founder Michael were the ones that were doing the coding, and I was more in charge of business. And one of the MEST resources, our director, he one day cornered me in the hall. I know this is an international audience, so maybe when I say cornered, it's very Ghanaian. But when I say cornered, I mean he interacted with me probably in the hallway, and his questions to me were, "Hey, how is sales going?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's going well." And then he followed up with a few questions like, "Oh, okay, how much sales has come in this month?" Honestly, I didn't have the answer, and so I said, "Oh, it's going well. They are so far selling okay." Okay, and then he was like, "How much did you sell last month?" By you, I mean he meant the company. To be very honest, I didn't know. As the lead of the business side of the company, number one, it was embarrassing to not know your number. I knew the company was healthy. I knew we had traction from customers and we were profitable, but I didn't know how profitable. And it was very embarrassing, but I was trying to hide the embarrassment by giving them some roundabout numbers. And you'll be surprised to learn or to see how common this is among company founders or leaders, even people who are engineers and are founders of the company. You ask them like, how much sales came in? They don't know. How many users do you have? They don't know. They want to just build and go, but then without tracking your key metrics, without tracking what is important, and without knowing them at the back of your head, you should know it like your age. How old are you? If you ask someone, how old are you? And they go like, give me a while, let me think. Then there's a problem. The metrics of the company is just like, how old are you for the company? You should know at least 4 or 5 key metrics that is driving the company, that is helping you make decisions. How many users do you have? What is your churn rate? You mean that how many are are dropping off? What is your sales? What is your profit? These are things that as a startup founder or as an owner of a business or product, you should know by heart. But I know as startups, there's so much pressure on you, you're all over the place. And so it is a little bit, it doesn't come natural. It feels like, oh, this is something that we'll figure out along the way. But it's something that you need to put in place right from the beginning in order for it to become a culture. Otherwise, it will never happen. So that was my embarrassing story, which actually gingered me or led me to put in place the right mechanisms to make sure that not just me, but my co-founders and the whole company, at every point in time, if you call anyone at Nandi Mobile, they'll be able to tell you how much sales we made that day, how far away we are from our target, how much individual sales each person is bringing in. It took some time, but in the end, we got there. We got to a point where everyone felt like they were an owner in the company and they knew what was happening. So today we are going to talk about metrics. I'm not the person who likes to do dictionary, and so I don't quote the dictionary definition, but whenever you hear metrics, there are a few things that come to mind, like you are measuring, you are assessing the results, you are measuring, you are sniffing to understand whether or not this is going well, this is going great or not. So it has to do with measurements in order for you to see whether or not you should continue with something or not continue. It's like going to the hospital, right? You go to the hospital, they measure your temperature, they take your blood pressure. Those are things that they will give to the doctor for them to understand whether is this person okay, even before they ask you, why are you here? That is how it is. So all of those things are metrics. You actually do metrics even without knowing them. For instance, you're in your finance. If your friends came to you and said, hey, let's go party, sometimes, depending on how your account is structured, it might not be a good time to party. If you go and party with your 100 Ghana cedis or whatever amount is in your bank account, you might not make it to the end of the month. So those are metrics where you begin to check your wallet, or you begin to check your bank account to see whether or not this activity you can even pursue. That is metrics. For those who are into health, those who have Fitbit or Apple Watch, or even your mobile phone can track the number of steps. You sometimes go into metrics to see how many steps have I gone into, how many steps have I done today. And I think for some of you, have I closed my circles? It is all metrics. How much time have I put into working out? They are all metrics. Or for those of you who drive, like, metrics are right ahead of you in your dashboard. What is my speed? What is the speed limit? What is my tire pressure? And then you begin to see, the check engine light flash. All of those things are metrics to give you a sense of how well or not so well an entity, it could be a product, it could be a company, is going. And so without knowing it, we actually do engage in some metrics tracking. And so it makes sense to bring that into your product or into your startup. Now, the biggest metric of them all overall is profit. I believe that if you came to MEST, you generally are going into a profit-making venture, because at the end of the day, you're raising money to be able to turn some return for your investors, for yourself, and for your customers. And so the biggest of them all is, revenue and cost profit. In order to increase and maximize profit, you want to maximize your revenue as much as possible and decrease your costs. Every metric that is in this world is somehow tied to these three key buckets: your revenue, your costs, and your profit. And then in secondary, and I'll talk about this a little bit, I don't want to go too much into that, but secondarily, there's also the company mission, or there is the business model. The way the business is structured, or the company mission or culture, could impact which one of these things you focus on the most. Profit will be important to you, but the how you do it will also be almost defined by what your company mission or your culture is. Now, if we broke revenue, for instance, and I'm going to assume that we are a digital company. If we broke revenue, for instance, the revenue is coming from subscriptions. So, let's say you have a mobile app, and at the end of the day, subscriptions is going to drive revenue. Signups is going to drive revenue. Downloads is going to drive revenue. Number of clicks is going to drive revenue. Number of articles or content that is on the app could also drive revenue. So you have to, from the overall master profit, revenue plus cost is equal to profit, you have to break them down, which is the next step, into what are the key things that drive revenue, and then what are the key things that drive cost. So that is a formula. Start with the overall revenue plus cost is equal to profit. And then sit down with your team and ask yourself, hey, what are the key drivers that increase our revenue? Subscription, sign up, download, clicks, number of articles. And this is just a few. There are so many other things that drive revenue. Depending on your business, it could be one thing or another. And I didn't want to go into detail because I wanted to leave it for you to go and do your research. Whatever you are working on, or whatever capstone or project you're working on now, go and ask yourself, what are the things that increase revenue? And then on the flip side, ask yourself, what are the things that those are the things that we can do to reduce cost? Or what are the things that drive costs? And what you're going to be doing is going to evaluate how you're going to reduce that particular item. Hosting is one big driver for most digital companies. So one thing that you may be doing is you may want to cut down your hosting costs, either by getting a cheaper hosting company or by optimizing your software so that it doesn't really eat too much bandwidth. Those are things that you can look into as a business to see how you can drive the down cost. If you're an e-commerce company, how can you reduce returns? Because when customers return, it's a cost to you. When customers bring back an item, oh, this is spot or this is not a color, you can look into why they are returning. Is it that we are not putting in the right buttons? Also, of course, one of the biggest items, which is almost always the biggest bill on every company, is the wages or salaries. It is going to be, if you're going to drive a company, it is going to be one of your costs. How do you reduce cost? How do we, don't go and cut people's salaries, but how do we make sure that we get the best talent for the money that we have? That is also one thing that you can look into. And then things like rent, utilities, the list is long. So you have to sit down as a team or as a product owner to ask yourself, what are the things that I need to increase in order to increase my revenue? What are the things that I need? What are the things that are impacting my cost that I need to reduce? And that overall is going to be what you're going to track. So let me give an example, and I don't know if folks can, but this is essentially like a question that I have for you, because I want people to understand when we say profit, costs, and revenue. People usually think it is so simple, and they're like, "Oh, I understand it," but not exactly. I have a question for you. If you were a car salesman and your products were, a Lexus, nice car, Corolla, it is on all the streets in Ghana, or a wiper, wiper. Let's say you sell as a Lexus for $35,000. The Corolla is $20,000 per unit, and one wiper is $600. I'm sorry, I'm quoting dollars. My brain has just been, washed. But you can replace CDs, and it will pretty much be the same. The same question. Now, assuming it takes you as much time, and this is a big assumption, assuming, because I want to drive home a point, assuming it takes as much time to sell 100 units of Lexus versus 100 units of Corolla versus 100 units of car wipers, considering the profit margin on each one of these items, which one would you focus your energy on the most? And which one would you want your team to stop selling so that you can focus more on the other items? I will pause here and I'll give you some thoughts to think about it. I want us to brainstorm. Fiona, I don't know if folks can come off mute. You don't have to come on camera. If you do, I would appreciate that. But I want to hear what you have to, what your thoughts are. So there's a Lexus, there's a Corolla, and there's a car wiper. I've listed the profit margins on there. If you sell 100 of each one, they give you different profit margins. If you sell 100 of the Lexus, you get $350,000 or 350,000 cedis, whatever currency you want. If you sell 100 of the Corolla, you get $200,000. If you sell 100 of the wipers, you get 40,000. Which one of these would you focus your attention on the most? And which one, if you had a chance, would you slash off? Would you take off your portfolio so that you can focus on the other profitable products? Is it Benaya? Benaya raised their hand, and so I will, let me know if I butcher your name, but I hope I didn't. Benaya, go ahead. Do I have to unmute? I'm not sure if I have to do anything, but you can come on, come off mute.
Edward, you'll need to allow them to speak.
How do I do that?
Let me help.
Yes, please. I don't want to gag anyone. I want everyone to speak. I am big on freedom of speech. So please do speak. While Fiona figures that out, I missed a few things in my profile. While I was in Ghana, I also I was very active in the blogging community. I helped set up Ghana's biggest blogging community, Blogging Ghana. And so I'm big on freedom of speech. I like it when people express themselves, but I also am a big believer of, being respectful of people's rights as well. Usually getting the balance is a very tough job, but yeah. All right. Benaya, first of all, did I butcher your name or was it correct? Please go ahead. Let me see. Okay, so I ask to unmute. I can ask you to unmute. Okay.
Yes, the name is yes. Okay. So from what I can see on the information that you presented, the Lexus, same quantities for Lexus and Corolla, but smaller quantity sold for the wipers. The profit margin is 5% for the Lexus, 20% for the Corolla, and 80% for the wiper. So yeah. When you look at the revenue, between revenue and profits, for the revenue on the Lexus side is 350,000 USD, and the profit is about 17,500. So that gives a cost of about almost 325,000, if I'm correct. And then for the Corolla, that's a cost of about, let's say, 160,000. But when you look at the wiper side, you can see that the difference between the revenue, the percentage difference, so the margins between the revenue and the profits is the highest. Yeah. And so for the smallest quantity sold of all the three, it has the highest profit margin. So for me, I would focus on the wipers and I would slash the Lexus and maybe maintain the Corolla.
Okay, so Benaya is saying he will let Lexus go. He's like, yo, I'm going to let Lexus go. I like your thinking. Does anyone have any opposing view or who agrees with him? And I don't want to give this away. I actually wasn't going to add the last line, but I think that is where the most of the thinking is. But in respect of time, you are spot on. Yes. People sometimes, and even founders, even tech people, we are sometimes very fixated on revenue. Oh, this item brought $2 million. But how much profit did you make on it? Right? You probably have to pay someone. So maybe one has a lot of cost involved in it. The marketing cost in order to get that $2 million is so high that it doesn't make sense. And so it's giving you so much revenue, but at the end of the day, give me one sec, please. It's giving you so much revenue, but at the end of the day, when you do the math, you realize that actually you are not making as much on the Lexus. If we actually sold 100 wipers, we will actually be making more profit than on the Corolla. So I agree with Bernard. Yes, I will absolutely let Lexus go, because in terms of profit margins, I'm getting more money from the wiper. And so it is a very difficult decision to make when you advertise yourself as a Lexus company, only in 2 years for you to say, now I'm selling wipers. But sometimes when people do it, you're like, okay, I understand why. But in order for you to get there, you need to go down and see where am I getting the most profit? And without building the right pipeline or metrics, you will be confused. You wouldn't know what am I focusing my attention on? And that's why people focus so much on the wrong things. They get so much money. By the end of the day, when they do the maths, they're like, actually, yeah, we made $20,000, but we didn't make any profit. But if you are able to focus 100% of that energy into maybe a smaller item that has a bigger margin, you end up making more profit. And so people say, oh, I understand profit and loss, or some, profit cost and etc. But not everyone does. They don't include what is the margin. So yes, Benaya, thank you for that response. Do I have something in the Q&A? Okay, there's a question. So Jesse says, I've got a question about the larger revenue figure of the Lexus sales. Are there situations in the real world where it is better to pursue the larger revenue figure in spite of the smaller margins? That's a good question. So this is a made-up story just so that I can drive home my point. And they are also interconnected, right? Maybe the traffic for the wiper is coming because you have Lexus on your, in your garage, or you have Lexus, in your shop. And so if you cut the Lexus now, there's no more foot traffic. And so it goes on to harm wipers. But absolutely, Jesse, yes. If you are selling, I don't know, if you are selling, I saw recently a video of someone who sells private planes. If you are selling private planes for $2 million, and on each private plane, you only make, I don't know, the margin is 2% or 5%. I don't know what the costs are. And there's an opportunity for you to build websites. So you can do both things. Build website on the margin of that, on the margin of build website is 80%. And if you focus the same energy and you had more profit from the other, don't let revenue blind you. Usually we are blinded by revenue too much. Oh, they gave me $2 million. Out of the $2 million, how much of it is profit? Right? So as founders, if there's any advice I can give you, this is the one advice I can give you. Revenue is a big deception. Ask yourself, out of all this big money, if I take out all my costs, what is my profit? What is opportunity cost? It means that with this, the time that I put into this, what could I have done, and could that thing have given me more profit? If the answer is yes, I could have used that time to do other things that will give me more profit. Focus on that item that gives you more profit. To focus on profit and not just on big revenue ticket items. Oh, if I sell 4 of this, I get 2 million. But if I sell 4 of this, I only get 200,000. But on the 200,000, probably your profit is 100,000, half. On the 2 million, probably your profit is, I don't know, $10,000. Once again, like I said, these are all scenarios that they actually do exist, but I only made up this Lexus Corolla wiper scenario to give you a sense of how some people can be blinded by, oh, let's focus on the big ticket items without necessarily focusing on profit. That big ticket item, if you take out your costs, how much is left in your hands? If it is less than what you could have made by selling a smaller ticket item, I would focus 100% of my energy on that. I mean, not 100%, sometimes. The shift has to be slow so that you can continue to use the metrics to track to see if you can balance. Maybe cut down on the number of Lexus. Maybe instead of 100 Lexus, do 4 Lexus and shift your attention on the Corollas and the wipers, because they are giving you bigger profit margins. Now let's move on. And I like this interaction. This is what I expect the session to be. Come in, share your thoughts, share questions as much as you can. So in my company, and I cannot share the actual metrics that we review because they are confidential information, but we review metrics every week. So we review metrics every week in a session called WBR, which is the weekly business review. And then we have the MBR, which is the monthly business review. And then we have the QBR, which is the quarterly business review. So you get a gist. WMQ. I'm not saying that it's a perfect word, go ahead and do it. But as founders, you should establish a process where there's a routine to check the health of the company and of your products. It should not be ad hoc. It should not be, hey, ding, 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 there's a problem, let's go and set up. There should be a routine process where either the founding members only or the whole company, depending on how big you are or how much of an active participation you want the other members of the company to play, you need to sit down and say, hey, on Tuesday or Wednesday of every week, we are going to review the prior week. So let me give you an example. I think we are in week, 30 now. So what happens, we actually had our WBR weekly business review on Tuesday. It happens on Tuesday because Monday is too hot. People have to go and gather their data. But on Mondays, as a product owner, you review your personal metrics or your portfolio, and you bridge. Bridging means that you have to provide an explanation for any odd numbers. And on Tuesday, there's almost like 2 hours of deep diving where you come on camera or you come into the room and you walk the leaders through where you are. Whatever is most important to you. Hey, what's most important to me is number of users. Last week, we had 5,000 users. And what we usually do is we compare it to the previous week, week over week. And if there's anything that's off, like it's a big number. So let's say, your website usually has about 5,000 readers every week. And then all of a sudden it drops to like 2,000. Something is off. Like, how did 3,000 drop? It could be due to different reasons. That is why you need to deep dive to be able to bridge. Bridging means that we're explaining why that number is off. And so I would highly recommend that as founders, you set a very healthy routine process. Even before you incorporate, you can start as a founding team. First, start with profit and loss. What are the metrics that drive revenue? What are the metrics that drive costs? How can we establish a pipeline? And I'll talk about this in a bit, how to establish a pipeline. But ideally, the dashboard or the report could look like this, where you are looking into the past by maybe 4 weeks to see in the past 4 weeks, how have things been trending? And all of the things on the screen are, once again, things that I came up with. I don't know your business, but you have to drive what is most important to you. Top 3, top 4. Don't put 100 things on the dashboard. Otherwise, you end up getting overwhelmed. What are the key things that should be important to us? Subscriptions, that's what is bringing the money. What is driving subscriptions? Downloads. What is driving downloads? Maybe active users. How are we performing on those? And then compare week over week. Week 29, we were okay. So if you see, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but if you see, this is actually what drives conversations, the week over week delta, which means that, hey, between week 29 and week 30, we were okay. We increased subscriptions by 50%. Usually when your numbers look like this, the leaders don't call you up. You're like, you're fine, because they want to consistently see you grow. And if there's no growth, you have to explain why there's no growth, especially if there's a big dip, why. That's the bridging part where you have to go and scratch your head and understand, why are we not doing well? 1 week probably sometimes could be a blip, but when it's consistent and is dropping, it means that your business or your product is not healthy. And you as a company founder or you as a product owner, you have to jump in quickly to seal the gap. You are not only expected to build a product, you're also expected to sell it. And if anything is stopping you from selling it, you have to identify where the leakage is coming from and seal it as quickly as possible. But first, you have to know how to identify a gap or a leakage, and how to know how do I seal the leakage before it becomes a cancerous thing in the company. Because when it becomes a cancer, then your company is not doing well, and then the salespeople are leaving, and then some of your founders are like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go back to my old company. So as an owner of a product, as an owner of a company, you have to make sure that one, you track the top things that are important. Two, see how you're performing. And three, if something is going off, you know what to do. You are the superhero, you're the ninja. Go in and seal it before it becomes a big crack. So your question might be, okay, how do I identify what should be most important to me? You can use the funnel method, which is essentially start from what is the most important thing to you, which is subscriptions, which is down here. What comes before subscriptions? Maybe, free trials. What comes before free trials? Maybe signups. What comes before signup? Site visits. So you need to build that funnel, and at every stage of the funnel, becomes smaller and smaller. So maybe 10,000 people visit your website, out of which 2,000 people sign up, out of which maybe 100, if you're lucky, people will take free trials, out of which 10 people do subscriptions. And maybe each one is, I don't know, average of 1,000 CDs. So you get 10,000 CDs for that particular period. It could be monthly or weekly. So in order for you to drive that, sit down once again with your team, sit down with your co-founders and build that funnel. The most important thing to you is at the apex, or is at the top of the pyramid. What is the immediate step that comes before that? What is the immediate step that comes before that? What's the immediate step that comes before that? And the easiest way to actually identify that is just by observing some of your customers. Just watch your customers go through the journey, and that will help you establish the various steps very quickly. Now, fortunately, most of you are in a digital world where it is possible to track almost everything, traffic. It is much more difficult if you were like selling cocoa, or if you were selling, cars, where it is difficult to identify where does this person come from, where does this person come from. Sometimes you have to send them surveys, which they probably might not respond to. But when you are in a digital world, it is much easier for you to be able to build those metrics. So you are pretty much a step ahead. But observe your customers and see what are the 4 or 5 steps they take before they subscribe. And if possible, for each step, find out why are people dropping off? Why are people coming out of it? Right? And I can share some anecdotes where I work with a team that realized that a lot of people were putting so many orders in their shopping cart, but then when they got to time to pay, they were just abandoning cart. So they will go through the whole process, come, search for an item, see it, review, add to their shopping cart, add a few more, and then when it's time to pay, you're like, abandon cart. And then the team quickly jumped into deep dive mode, like scratching their heads. Why is this happening? They realized that what was actually happening was that the cost or the price of the item they were seeing that attracted them, all of a sudden changes when they add it to their shopping cart. And it changes by like 10-12%. So at the point where people are ready to add to pay, they see like a big jump. They're like, no, this is not what I want to pay. And then they realize that there was a bug. There was a bug that had discounted the prices, but the discount was not being applied at the point of payout or at the point of payment. And so the team quickly made sure that they resolved it. And so right now, what you see is what you're going to pay for. this is the kind of culture that you need to build as product owners, as company owners, in order for you to seal any leakage or any gap that is in your user journey or in your product lifecycle. Otherwise, you realize that people are leaving, but you don't understand why they are leaving, or people are not patronizing your product, but you don't understand why. If someone cornered you and asked you how many users you have today, how many have unsubscribed, and why, you should be able to explain all of these things. But you cannot do that unless you empower yourself by building these metrics. One other thing you realize quickly is that and like I said, I used to be a writer, so I'm big on, I don't know why some examples are, number of articles, but you realize quickly that some of the metrics are interconnected. So number of articles, the more we publish, the more web traffic we get. The more web traffic we get, the more subscriptions we get. Therefore, it makes sense for us to publish more. So you don't get me wrong, this doesn't come in the first day, it doesn't come in the first week. It takes time for you to begin to build these heuristics and begin to see the interconnectedness between these different metrics or these different items. So don't force yourself to get it in day one, but you have to start in order for you to be able to begin to understand the connectedness, the network or the dependencies between these different parameters. So you realize that, oh, if we want more subscription, we have to get more people to just write articles, because articles is driving traffic, and that is going to get people to subscribe. Obviously, if there's also more traffic, your hosting cost also increases. So then the question is, how can we cut down hosting costs while still increasing traffic and increasing articles so that we can increase subscriptions? Once again, I've made it more simple than it is because I don't know your different businesses. I'll be more than happy to actually work with some of you if you get to that point, and I can help you build and brainstorm some of these things on your own. But just for explanation purposes, I just put on some of the most well-known parameters on there. Now, let's do an exercise, and I like the first one. Let's do a second exercise. So let's say you are the owner of a mobile product, and I don't know. Let's pick anyone. Let's pick any mobile product that you have. Let's say it's an e-commerce product or something, and you are the product owner, and this is what you are seeing. You logged into your dashboard, and this is what you are seeing. Week 49, 6,000 subscriptions. Week 50, 7,000. Week 51, 7,000, and then week 52, 1,000, which is like a 600% decrease. Number of downloads has decreased. Number of clicks has decreased. I have two questions for you, and once again, I'll be happy if someone came off mute to let me know what their thoughts are. First of all, how do you read this? Secondly, will you panic? Thirdly, what will you do? So three things. Number one is, how would you read this, which is pretty much easy. Number two is this cause for panic? Why not? Number three is, what would you do? You are the super ninja. If anyone wants to come off mute, that is fine. Like I said, I'm also fine if you come on camera. I have nothing against that. But all right, Francis. Francis, let me give you the power to unmute. This is interesting. This is the first time I'm doing Zoom as a host, by the way. So thank you, MEST. All right, Francis. Number one, how do you read this?
Thank you so much for the power to unmute. It's been an amazing session.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I am seeing this, and I'm actually not seeing a cause for alarm.
Okay.
Yeah, but I see this is essentially data from the last 4 weeks of the year.
Okay.
Depending on the kind of business that it is, maybe it's a seasonal business, you don't know.
Okay.
It's possible that this is very normal consumer behavior people are, going home for Christmas, businesses are shutting down.
Okay.
If this is some sort of maybe B2B software, they are going to be closing for the year. You see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, what you said about reading in between the lines is actually very valid, because if you just focus on maybe the delta, you're like, something is going wrong. Something is
like,
going
yo, I'm going to fire my whole team. Like, yo, I like that.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
my take on it.
I like that. I like that. Okay. So one of the reasons why I don't like to present to MEST is you guys always get all the answers. And I end up sounding like, yo, you cry, why are you here? Just give them the microphone, let them pitch. I've given this a few times and they're all like, yeah, how we break loose? So Francis hits right on the nail, right spot on. Reading in between the lines, sometimes metrics, what is not saying is sometimes more important than what it is saying. And Francis was spot on. Week 52 is actually Christmas week. Like, depending on your business, you don't expect people to be reading, like they are spending time with family, or they are in traffic in Accra. Like, if you've been in Accra on a typical December, like my guy, nobody has time to read your blog. Nobody has time to download. Like, nobody, the internet safe where they, like my guy, like. So the reason why I wanted to add this is, yes, it's important for you to track all of this, but also instead of only doing week over week, and Francis mentioned, if it's seasonal, try and compare to year over year. And I know that not every startup has that benefit of, oh, we have 3 years of data. Sometimes as a startup, by the time you catch the third year, I'm apologetic for the pigeon, but I'll try to not do pigeon since this is an international community. Sometimes as a startup, by the time you get to the third year, you are probably dead. So you don't have enough time, history to even do year-over-year comparison. But if you are lucky to get there and you begin to build the seasonality, you begin to realize that, and actually you begin to expect it, where you're like, week 52 is, a time that our users are usually pretty chill. They are mostly offline. So this shouldn't scare you. That's one way of thinking about it. Or you could go like, hey, week 52, people are going to go offline, or we have to do 10 times what we did in week 51 in order to get what we got in week 51. So depending on what kind of leader you are, this is probably when you raise your budget. But you could also go like, hey team, week 52, chill. Every year there's a 500 to 600% dip. Go spend time with family. You will receive, when you log into the dashboard, you will see this. Don't worry. This is a sign of a leader or an owner who knows now you understand your product. You even understand before it happens, because human beings are generally predictable. Like our behavior and our trends are usually predictable, and that is something even my company depends on so much to be able to make assumptions. So Francis, I really, really love that answer. Yes, he's like, yeah, there's a dip, but not every dip is a dip. This is an expected dip because people are spending less time online, more time, in doing other activities. In another business, this might be a problem. So don't get me wrong. Don't go like, oh, you sell Christmas trees and it's dropping in Christmas Day, and you are not worried. Like, bro, you are selling Christmas trees. That is actually the time when your sales should be going up high, right? So you should begin to understand your business. Your business at a time when people stay offline, or is this a time when people gravitate more towards more towards your product? In which case, you should almost always preempt what's happening. I didn't want to get into projections and forecasts and targets, because then that gets a little bit into the nuance. I'll touch on it a little bit, but also setting up metrics will help you give yourself as a company a target and distribute that target to your team. Because if you know week over week, every week, like minimum, we are able to do 6,000, then you can now begin to make that your target And even maybe not make 6,000, because 6,000 is maybe what you usually do with your eyes closed. So maybe can we stretch ourselves a little bit by giving ourselves 7,000? And maybe you can increase that target every quarter on quarter and year over year. So metrics also helps you to begin to now give yourself as a company a target, and also give your sales team or your employees a target, because you've gathered enough information to have a sense of what the trends are. And now you are confident that this is where we can get to without even putting effort. And therefore, I'm going to add like a 20% margin on it. That is going to be our stretch goal. So that is one other benefit of metrics. Now, your next question will be, all right, Edward, we get it. We need to establish metrics to be able to understand the health of the company or the product. How do we do that? Show us how we do that. Otherwise, we are fraud. All right, I'm not a fraud. I'm going to show you how to do this. Like I said, hopefully most of you, all of you are digital companies, so you are in luck. There are a lot of analytics tools that you can build into your product. And that is why it's important for you to think about it whilst you're building the product. Whilst you're building a product, can you put in some analysis either? And for some of these things, I don't recommend you build from scratch. There are a lot of plugins or a lot of third-party tools you can use. If it's a mobile app you're building, you can essentially track the traffic, track where they're coming from. It's a web app. Google Analytics is your friend. They're not paying me to say this. Or there are so many other third parties that you can use to track in detail where the people are coming from, how long are they staying, what's the bounce rate. These things are pretty much things that you have to build into your product roadmap, so that you can now go and collect the data and make some analysis out of it. The second one, which could be an online, offline one, is a CRM or ERP. Especially when you are in a sales organization, obviously you can't put a plugin into your sales pipeline. When your sales team goes to sell, there's no plugin you can put in the car, or so you have to create a CRM. And there are a lot of CRMs, from super expensive ones to very cheap ones that startups can use. I remember when I was cornered by the director, one of the things that I did was to get a CRM. It's called Pipedrive. I don't know if they still exist, but we evaluated a few of them and we ended up with that because it had the best user experience, etc., etc. But essentially, you should have a CRM, or you could even do Excel. You could do Google Sheets, where after the team goes to sell, they come and they put in some numbers, and that helps them. How many phone calls did you make? How many said yes? How many said no? How many meetings? And with time, you begin to see a trend that for every 100 phone calls, 20 people say, okay, I want to talk to you, out of which 5 sign up, out of which 1 person subscribes and pays you money. Then you begin to see a formula. And so that would even help you come up with a ratio of, okay, we have enough data, 5 months of data, where for every 100 phone calls, 1 person signs up. Therefore, my target to my sales team is, if you want to make 5 signups, and that's probably the target, you need to make 500 phone calls. And then they go like, that is pretty much a funnel based on what you know. And that could change over time. But CRM, ERP, I would not recommend you go for the super expensive ones. If you want, even start with like Google Sheets. It is collaborative, it's accessible to everyone. And then maybe as you drive the culture, then you can go with a subscription to one of these ERPs. The problem though that I want to call out is it is not a culture for people, especially sales team, to like keep tracking. And so it is something as founders that you have to almost be committed to almost like remind your team, hey, you made a phone call, I want you to log it in. Because if they don't put in that data, then it ends up telling half the story versus the full story. And then the last one, which is something that you cannot track with web analytics or mobile analytics. To some extent you can. When someone comes and they leave, they leave within 2 seconds. It could be a sense of, hey, your UI or something is off. Actually, I'll tell you a story. One funny story. But one thing I wanted to say was offline metrics could be tracked with surveys. Send frequent surveys to your users and customers and get a sense of how are they doing, are they happy? That could also give you some qualitative analysis as well. And the story that I wanted to share was, so when we built Nandi Mobile, we realized that we were selling so many subscriptions, but the logins were very few. And one day we were like, hey, look, let's use this month as a customer service month. Let's visit people, let's call them. And after like 30 days, the topmost problem or reason why people were not logging in was, oh my God, forgot password. Yeah, I subscribed, but I forgot my password. What's my password again? I forgot my password. So we came up with a different, we came up with a new way of getting them to remember their password. I'm not going to divulge now, but they had to do their phone numbers. And it was a combination of their phone number and something else so that they would not have to forget their password and they'll be able to change it if they wanted. But that is how we were able to almost increase the number of logins after subscriptions. So check in on your people. Like subscriptions are not just enough. Sometimes you have to go to them. Are you happy with that process, that sales process? Let them collect some of those qualitative offline metrics as well. Now, this is how you can, once you establish it, so now you know how to do it. First, you know why to do it. You know how to do it. Now, once you establish it, this is how you can keep it going. First of all, and this is dependent on what kind of leader you are. I am the open leader that I want almost everyone to have full transparency. Hey, this is what we are selling. This is how much is going. This is the top salesperson. And in my company, in Nandi Mobile, we had like monthly awards for the top salespeople. And it was transparent. Like this one is not kululu. Like you can tell the person is selling 3 times more than you are. So you can't even tell me that there's like, you know, nepotism or some favoritism. Like the person is beating you like hands down. So for me, one is open access. Once you build the dashboard or you build the central repository so that people can access it, give people access. Like I said, depending on what you are doing, you may want to restrict access to just the founding team, or you may want to open it up to everyone so that everyone will now see how well we are doing. I think that a healthy team is a team that you can even call the driver and go like, hey driver, how was your company doing? And driver goes like, oh, this month we sold 6,000. Last month we sold 4,000. And then next month we are on track to sell 8,000. You're like, whoa, aren't you a driver? Yes, I know I'm a driver, but I can't give you, access to how my company is performing. That might be a bit of a stretch, but you get my point. My point is let everyone understand where we are. Are we in trouble? Are we on track or not? And then second one is there should be one member of the founding team, hopefully the CEO or someone who does a good job with communication, who is in charge of the metrics. You are in charge of telling us whether or not we are doing well. And you can do this through newsletters. I was in charge of this when we led Nandi Mobile, and every month I'll send, a nice letter or nice email. Hey, this month we met our goal of X number of CDs. We actually surpassed it by this much. This is the number of new signups. This is how we are doing. Blah 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 blah. Kudos and congrats to the top salespeople of the month. Nice and short, and it helps the team come along with you, right? So that it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm coming to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know what's happening. I'm just selling. How does my performance or my contribution push the company forward, or how does it pull it back? The third one is give targets and ownership. And I mentioned this. Targets are a bit tricky. It could be a whole new topic, but when you begin to get data, you'll be more comfortable to now go like, we make 6,000 CDs every month. That's like, even with our eyes closed. Now it makes sense to break it into 3. one co-founder each takes a target. I don't know, however you want to do it. But when you begin to bring in targets, then everyone begins to feel like their owner. Now it is second week and I am like far away from my target. It will ginger them to now put in more work. Or it's third week, I've already met my target. Haha, I feel very pumped. Maybe I chill, maybe I help someone else, maybe I go over the bar if there are incentives. And like I mentioned, try and establish a culture. Maybe when your company is very new and you don't have too much traction, weekly might be too much, but try and establish a culture of a monthly review where every month you bring in all the numbers and you measure or you review the top 3 things that are important to you, and you discuss, hey, our web traffic is down. Why? What can we do to bring it up? And then you begin to track whether or not the things you are doing to bring it up is indeed contributing to the problem you want to fix. Yeah, why do you need to do this? Number one, like I said before, if there's a loophole, if there's a gap, if there's a crack, you want to be the superhero and fix it before it becomes a cancer. Also, and this is one of the difficult conversations, and I know that as part of the MEST curriculum, you are trained to hire and fire, but at some point you may have to have a difficult conversation with an employee or even with a founder to say, hey, it's been 12 months, we've been tracking your performance and it's not going well. You can put them on probation, but the numbers are speaking for themselves, so that they don't come back and say, oh, this is because you hate my bow tie. It's not about your bow tie. These are the numbers. Everyone else is doing 70% more than you are doing. Like, do they have 2 heads? Right? Like I said, it's a very difficult conversation, but it's a conversation that you need to have, because the money is not your money. The money is investors' money, and the business is for the customers. And so if they are drawing the company back, you need to use the metrics and the performance data to make those key decisions. The way you approach it will depend on what kind of leadership you are, what kind of leader you are. You can use that to help them to know which salespeople need help, so that you can help them, train them, give them the right resource, pair them with a top salesperson and bring them up to speed. And if those things don't work, then you know that that position will be better suited for somebody else. Lastly, and going back to the Lexus conversation, maybe the data tells you that, hey, you shouldn't be selling Lexus. You should be selling more Corolla and more, wipers. So the data helps you understand where you should focus your energies. Or, we started as a photo sharing company, but this feature that we launched is driving 80% of the traffic month over month. Maybe this is where we need to go. And then you rebrand yourself. We are no longer a photo sharing app. You actually are, this feature that now people want, because that is where the interest rate is. So those are some of the benefits of having metrics. It's like a torchlight. It shows you where you're going, and it gives you it helps you make decisions more confidently. Now let's do case study. And this case study, you should do it individually. It shouldn't take more than 2 minutes. I would want at least 2 people to pop on, off mute. I'll give you all the powers you need to speak. But my question is, and I don't know how many of you know this app. I set it up. I went in once or twice and I left. For every cool thing, I will use at least once. But this is the Threads logo. This is Mark Zuckerberg's new baby. Let's say you're the product manager of Threads. I have 3 questions for you. Question number 1 is, what will be your top 3 most important metrics that you want to track? Top 3. Number 2 is, if those metrics go down, what will be the thing that you will do to push them back up? So case study is, you are the product manager, the CEO of Threads, Instagram Threads or Meta Threads, whatever the official name is. If you are setting metrics, knowing what you know about this app, and for those who don't know, it's a social media app that was launched to compete with X or Twitter. what are going to be the top 3 metrics that you track? And maybe tell us why. If those metrics go down, or even if they don't go down, what are the things that you would do as a product manager to push those metrics up? So I'll probably give you a minute to, do some thinking. If you are in team, if you are seated by a friend close by, I don't mind if you do brainstorm and present the answer as a team. But I wanted to challenge you with this and see if we can bring all the things that we've learned today into practice. So if you are ready, please just raise your hand and I will give you the power to speak. Whilst you do the thinking, please give me a minute. Let me grab some water and I will unmute the person whose hand is up. 1 minute. All right, I'm back. Any takers? Threads. You are the product manager, CEO, director. You are the boss of Threads. What are the top 2, top 3 things you track? What are you going to do to make sure that you increase that particular metric? I'm giving you promotions. I'm giving you big titles. CEO of Threads, product manager of Threads, director of Threads. That is your business. That is that's what will be on your business card. Now, good. Benaya, let me empower you. Let's hear your thoughts.
Okay, so for me, looking at how Threads have been and the path that they're going on, I will track the number of signups because it's a new platform. So I'll track the number of signups. And then the second one that I'll track will be active users per day. So let's say I will have a certain number in mind for active users. And then I also look at how much content they are generated. So we have to have people coming in and signing up, and then after they sign up, they must stay on the app, spend some time there, and then in order to make the app more interesting, they have to create content. So that's how I look at it.
I like that. Quick question: what would be your best measure of active users? There's no right or wrong. It's just that Threads has an interesting launch history. So I want to see how do you set the active user expectation or the target?
I'm sorry I haven't thought deeply about that, but for me, I think I would look at active users within a certain time frame. Let's say for the 27th last month and then the 27th this month, and then compare. There's been an increase, maybe day on day or week on week. That is how I would look at the active users. That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, Threads is new, so maybe last month might be a little bit like it's interesting because depending on this is a very interesting app because it had a lot of hype, and apparently the hype is dwindling a little bit. So using last month might throw you off a little bit. It might be too high or too low, but that is definitely one way to go about it. Someone else raised their hand. I like the engagement. Thank you all for the engagement. Did someone else raise their hand? Sorry, I'm struggling small with somebody. Okay, is it Siri?
Allow them to talk.
All right, Siri. Is it? Did I butcher your name or did I get it right? Siri. Oh, 1 sec. Did I allow you to ask to unmute? Yes, Siri.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for the session. It's been an amazing one. If I were supposed to be the product or the manager or the CEO of Threads,
CEO sounds better, right?
Yeah, CEO. What I'll measure is the number of interactions based on I'll do a matrix for the screen in the interactions, because provided that thread is actually connected to your Instagram, you're measuring based on the number of followers, the number of users you have on Instagram. And if people are migrating directly from Instagram to thread, then there's a probability that since you already have a strong foot in the market and you already understand how these users are behaving, comparing to X, that is Twitter as at the last time, it's fair to say I'm going to measure how people interact with the thread app within that specific period and how many downloads we had within 1 week or a day, because it's already associated to something else. It's not like we are trying to get new user base. You're already leveraging on existing user base. If these existing users are already there, how much are they interacting with this platform? Or track the database, so I'll make sure that how active the database is. If there are so many messages coming into the database and stuff, and then I will know, okay, for sure we are doing something right. And then maybe since it's still a new app, within the first week or the first 3 days, is something that is booming. So within the first week, I'll give a different metrics of tracking for it, and then other previous weeks I'll give another way of tracking it, because the level of engagement is not going to be the same. The excitement. The excitement, it has its own metrics, and then when the excitement dies down, it has its own metric. And then how to follow up with these people. Maybe I'll go through all the requests, because normally since it's a new platform, people will be like, I wish they had this, I wish they had that, I wish they had this, I wish they had that. So I'll see if we should in one of these things they're asking and see how we are going to increase their engagement again and all that. If I tried, this is how I was going to measure it.
I love that. And I'll take Emmanuel, and then Emmanuel, let me give you the power to speak. There you go. You can speak.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. And then thanks for the insights that you've shared. Those are very wonderful things that we are all learning that we're going to implement. I think to add to what's been said already, the metrics I'd consider is maybe, I don't know the technical term, but then how long or the amount of time people are spending on the app, like maybe day by day.
Active time,
so active time, exactly. So just as you said, I mean, when it came at first, the hype was up. So let's begin to track, if possible, do a sample of some users. And then track their time. Has their time gone up? Has it reduced? Right. So at least it will give you a fair idea as to whether the people are enjoying the app. Obviously, if they are not, the active time will reduce. If they are, and then it will increase. Obviously, it gets to a point where it peaks and then it normalizes. Then And then to the follow-up question. About what you do when the metrics go down. So I think maybe when it gets to the point that you are not hitting the metrics or the targets that you set for yourself. I mean, unfortunately, Threads is in a fierce competition with Twitter, and then you can't rule out your competitors. So maybe you can set up a team to be monitoring what's happening on Twitter. People will definitely be talking about Threads on Twitter, even though they are competitive, platforms. So you can be monitoring what are the conversations going on about your app on your competitors' platform. To be able to know like what the difference feelings are from the perspective of the users, and then see what are the things that you're able to integrate into
Perfect. So all the 3 answers and responses are correct. Like there's no right or wrong. I mean, there's right, there's wrong, but there isn't any wrong today. I'm not saying that you couldn't have been wrong. All of them are right, depending on circumstances. What makes Thread a little bit different from any normal app is it is an offshoot of Instagram, which means that you must have Instagram to have Threads. And so what Siri said, which I loved so much, was that she connected it to Instagram. So one thing that I would want to check is what is the ratio of Instagram users versus Threads? And I would want to see that bucket get full up over time, right? Because people are coming from Instagram. And so if there are 10 million people on Instagram, I want to see what ratio of Instagram users are we filling up over time. So that is what makes Thread a bit different from like a normal, siloed standalone app. It is an offshoot of Instagram, and so you want to see some fraction. How many are active on Instagram? How many versus Threads? And then see whether or not Threads is on the same trajectory as Instagram. That is what makes this case study a little bit interesting. Otherwise, it's like any normal app. So active users, weekly active users, monthly active users, engagement time, signups, downloads, because that's what you're going to sell to the advertisers down the line. Trust me, that is overall the big game for Meta. One thing that I wanted to say before I move on to the next case study, which is my last slide, is depending on the business in which you are, there likely is like a public business. What I would admonish you to do is to go on their websites, download their, we call it 10K or 10Q. 10K is the financial results. Usually, and it's a big document. It's like sometimes like 15 pages, or sometimes even 40 pages. When you read their financial results, that it could be Uber or Facebook or even Amazon, they connect their top metrics to profit, revenue, costs, earning per share. Begin to familiarize yourself with how companies that are in your industry, how they operate, what metrics do they track, and that will give you a sense of how you, as a private company, will also begin to, set up those. Don't let those big numbers, break your back. They are big numbers because they've been around forever. I'm not talking about the numbers, the billions. I'm talking about what are they tracking? What are they reporting? And those things should probably be our key metrics. For instance, when AI became a big thing, Google did call out that, look, our web traffic to google.com is threatened. And as a public company, you have to mention some of these things. And so if you are within the search, not too many startups are, but that gives you a sense of, oh, these are the things that we have to track in order to see how healthy we are. Last case study, I'll probably take 2 submissions on this, and then we can wrap up. Barbie, let's say you're the creative director or the CEO or the product owner of Barbie Launch. What are the 2 things that you would, or the 3 things that you would track? How will you increase those metrics, and why? And by Barbie Launch, I mean the movie, not the doll. The doll has been around forever. I mean the movie. All right, Siri is back. I see. All right, Siri, let me know what your thoughts are.
All right, thank you again. So for Barbie, provided Barbie, it's like a thing that has been existing before for kids, I would definitely not track how the kids will interact with them, or maybe the young people within the ages of 4 to like 16 or 4 to 15. I will not really base my focus on that. As the product manager, I'll base my focus on the adults, because when they were trying to, the whole concept of them painting the whole city pink and all those, it shows that they are not having a specific target at that time. Either whether or not you're a kid, whether or not you're a male or you're a female, you were their targets. So with that, it's like they have a whole pool of targeted audience that they are putting the Barbie at them. So if I was the Barbie manager and all those things, I'll focus on the people who have not been, I'll focus on the people whose interest is not Barbie, like the kids, that they are not so addicted to Barbie. And then if the adults are actually engaging with the Barbie more than the kids are engaging, then I think I'm going to take that as my success metrics. And then the second thing I'm going to focus on, because reading the whole thing because I was actually interested in Barbie's concept of marketing. And it shows that you have been interested in it. And they're trying to compare their marketing with one other cartoon that has been going on for a while too for kids. So I'll measure my metrics based on, I forgot the name of that cartoon actually. I'll measure my metrics to based on them. So if they actually did their own part of the campaign, and then they had like 60,000 users, and maybe they had a particular niche, and I'm doing my own campaign and I'm targeting everyone. There are 60,000 users for me. I'll multiply it by 3 to see that that is my own success metrics, because they had a particular pool they were targeting. But for me as a Barbie product manager, I have a whole array of people I'm targeting. So it's not just like a niche kind of target. So I'll target between 18 and above, male and female, 35 and above still, male and female, either of them. And then I'll target based on the previous ads that we are trying to compare with them, because for them, they had a smaller pool of people. And for us, we have a whole pool of people that we're targeting. So that's how I'm going to base my metrics if I was a Barbie product manager.
Perfect. On that note, guys, I don't know if anyone can beat this, but she has definitely showed that she knows this Barbie campaign in and out. We have 3 minutes to go, and I need to wrap up to jump to my next meeting. But it's been amazing. You folks have been an amazing audience, and I've enjoyed talking to you. You've been very engaging. Like I said, it's always daunting speaking to MEST folks because you guys are always ahead of the crowd, and I end up learning more from you. I actually have learned more from you than you have. So a few things. I'm not sure where each one of you are, but if you are into metrics, for me, it's a big thing for me. And also, I think as MEST alumni, we need to give back. If any of your teams have any metrics and you want to set up a quick time to help you brainstorm and help you set up, I'll be more than happy to do that. Fiona has my email address. I almost always only do emails. So I am going to 100% be there available for you. This is the only thing that I expect from you. If you would get in touch, please skip pleasantries. It is one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't know why God created me that way. I don't like, hey, how are you? How are you doing? Nice presentation, wonderful. Skip that. Tell me how I can help you, or tell me how much money you have for me. 2 things. How can I help you, or how much money do you have for me? If you say a nice presentation is fine, that's fine, but don't stop there. Go ahead and add the actual meat of the context of the content. That is what will get me to move on to schedule some time with you. Like I said, I don't know why God created me that way, but I pull my hair when people just say hi or hello and they stop waiting for you to say hello or hi back. It makes me cringe. So you can get my email address from Fiona. If your team is at a point in the life cycle where you have to set up metrics, I'm more than happy to help you. And if you are not even a MEST trainee and you're outside the ecosystem, I am also more than happy to help you. The only thing I ask is please skip pleasantries when we interact, and we will have a very, very nice relationship. So thank you very much. You've been an amazing audience. Fiona, I'll pass it on to you. All right, skip pleasantries and we'll talk. Bye-bye. Amazing guest. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Have a great evening. Thank you, Edward, and see you on the next one. Bye, guys.